Surf's up, listeners, and welcome to Shark Bite Tales. This week's gnarly story asks the question of what do you do when your competition is supernaturally good? So sit back, and while you're waiting for that perfect wave, let our audio vibes take you away. This week's story is The Glittering Vampire Surfer from Atlantis, begrudgingly written and read by Wayne Cole. He apologizes in advance. The ocean air felt incredible against my face. There's nothing better than those few moments sitting on your board before a wave hits. That moment of anticipation where you know that you're about to face the fury of Mother Nature and become one with it. The adrenaline starts to rush through your body, preparing it for what's about to occur. It's the greatest feeling in the world, until it gets surpassed by the feeling of riding the wave itself. I should have been in my zone, but instead I was distracted. Camera drones were zooming around the sky, making sure every angle was covered. This wasn't just any weekend ride. It was the 12th annual North Shore Big Wave Invitational Surfing Competition. The biggest surfing competition in the country. My nerves were high, but I knew deep down there was no one who could approach my skill level within 3 states. That was when a bright light blinded me for a moment. I looked to the board next to me and saw a young man pull his shirt off. The light gleamed off his skin and his hair flowed in the wind. It wasn't just gleaming, though. It was glittering in the sunlight. His skin was actually glittering. A sinking sensation filled me as I started to come to a realization. My eyes moved to the board for confirmation and let out a curse. It was indeed an Atlantean design. My confidence was shattered as I realized what I was facing. I was about to compete against a teenage glittering vampire from Atlantis. Their skills at surfing were legendary. You never know how good you really are until you're truly pushed to your limits. I was about to be tested in a way that I had never been tested before. If I could win, everyone would know the name Noah Backbreaker Minnow. I was the best surfer alive, and I wasn't about to let some undead disco ball from under the sea show me up. Bracing myself for the coming wave, I focused on what was really important. This wasn't just some surfing competition anymore. It was good versus evil, living versus undead, perfect tan versus glitter. I tried to focus on my own surfing as the wave came up upon us. With a solid pose, I rose up, bouncing along the top of the wave. I knew I should focus on my own performance, but I couldn't help but glance over. The glittering bastard was standing on one leg in a crane kick pose. He actually pulled off the kick while riding his board. Well, 2 could play at this game. I reached down and grabbed the side of my board. Straining my muscles, I went into a handstand while riding the gnarly wave. I turned forward and back, doing careful spins on the board. Confident that I was winning, I glanced over at the vampire. He was doing a one-handed handstand with his legs bent back at the knees. I cursed, knowing I had been outmatched. I needed to do something desperate to win this competition. It really wasn't a fair contest. I was the best a human could be, but he had supernatural abilities and all the knowledge of Atlantis on his side. My mind raced trying to figure out what advantage I might have over him. I would have given anything for a wooden stake in that moment. I only had one more move to try and push me over the top. I stood up on my board and braced myself. I leapt up and did a backflip on my board. This is my most difficult stunt, but it wouldn't be enough. As soon as I landed, I immediately did it again. 3 backflips in a row without losing my balance. I'd never done even a double backflip before. I glanced over with a smirk on my face. In that moment, I was convinced that I had the competition in the bag. The sparkling vampire from Atlantis then pulled off the single greatest stunt I have ever seen. He pushed up from his one-armed handstand and did a double flip in the air before landing on his other hand. Then he did a triple flip, only to land back on the board in a flamingo pose on one leg. Finally, he spit out a solid stream of water from his mouth. I knew in that moment I had been defeated. I stood on the second place podium accepting my award. It was supposed to be my year, but first place was stolen by a monster. Well, I knew what I had to do. That was the beginning of my 2-year training mission. I have not set foot on a surfboard since that day. In fact, I chopped up my surfboard to create my bandolier of wooden stakes. He took my hobby from me, but in doing so, he gave me a new purpose in life. My new goal is to become the best vampire hunter in the world. Hello again, listeners, and in case you hadn't figured it out by now, this is our April Fool's episode of Bite-Sized Tales. I was asked to write this story when trying to come up with an idea for NaNoWriMo in 2020. After being reminded of it far too often, I finally broke down and wrote it in August of 2022. I wrote it as a joke and as a way to kill the ongoing joke. This chapter of Bite-Sized Tales has been brought to you under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, we would greatly appreciate reviews and recommendations to your friends. Finally, for more information about our authors, visit bitesizedtales.com. We can't wait to read to you again next time.